Hello, my name is Eamon and I am the Artistic Director here at Belvoir. Welcome to the 2021 Part 2 season. Part 2 comes in 3 parts. Part 1 is a small festival. Part 2 is a repertory season with an ensemble of actors doing 2 plays on the one set. Part 3 is a panto, a good old-fashioned let's pack as much joy into one show as we can to finish off a year panto. The festival we've designed to try and bring as many artists and as many audiences together in a room live to experience as many of the varieties of live performances possible in 3 weeks. So we've got 9 acts. They're a mix of comedy, cabaret, dance, theatre and music, and they play across them 24 performances over those 3 weeks. And all we wanted to do was to celebrate really as much as possible this thing that for a little while last year in Australia and still around the rest of the world became dangerous, which is gathering to watch other humans perform. So that's the festival. We're calling it Belvoir's Festival of Everything. All tickets are $35, and the idea is simply to get as many artists and as many audiences to meet together at Belvoir Street in a 3-week period as we possibly can. Part 2 of Part 2 is what we're calling the repertory season. 2 plays, the same cast, 2 different nights, the one set. Why? Because during the shutdown, we spent a lot of time working with ensembles. The Artists at Work program allowed us to put 2 part-time ensembles together, and we rediscovered the incredible creative energy that comes of allowing people to work together over a longer period of time and for it to be about the imagination of the group rather than the imagination of any one individual. The 2 plays that we've chosen are both plays about groups of people finding their way through periods of turmoil. The first one we've talked to you about before, it's Alana Valentine's The Wayside Bride. Alana Valentine has been researching the story of people who got married at the Wayside Chapel in its history, and she's brought it together in this play, which tells the story of a particular day in the life of Wayside. Back in the 1970s, when its then chaplain of the chapel, a guy called Ted Knopfs, found himself in a position where the life of that very important little organisation was under threat, and where he had to fight to save this place. I think a little bit like Belvoir Street, Wayside is about the idea that you must, within a city, always make sure that there is space not just for the strong, but for everybody. And that the city doesn't crush anyone who isn't strong, but that you create these bubbles that allow for all kinds of human dignity to exist. And I think that that's absolutely what The Wayside has been, and I like to think that it's what Belvoir Street is at its best. The second play that we're going to do is by another great radical woman writer. I think that Carol Churchill is the greatest living playwright on the planet. This play is called Light Shining in Buckinghamshire. It was written in 1977, tells the story of a large group of people during the English Civil War. The English in the 17th century cut off their king's head and tried to begin again. And they were really in the middle of this great experiment to go, how do you build a society from scratch and what do we want it to look like? And it feels like, even though we haven't cut off any king's heads, there is a sense that it's time to overthrow, make some change, think about how else we could establish society, the world. So both of these plays speak to each other. They both create a context for each other. They're both contemporary theatrical visions from these 2 great radical women writers. But at the centre of both of them is this plea for us to continue to imagine a better way to live together. So that's the repertory season. 1 ensemble of actors, 1 set, 2 different plays by 2 great radical women writers. Back just before COVID blew up last year, the irrepressible Virginia Gay, who you will remember, I hope, from her incredible star performance in Calamity Jane, got in touch with me from where she was in LA at the time and said, I've just been to London and I went and saw, for the first time in my life, a panto, and they blew my mind, and I want to write a panto for Belvoir. And then Virginia described to me the story of a small country town called Boomcac, which is under threat from a big bad developer. And the people of the town gather together to save the town by putting on a panto. And she talked me through some of the jokes and the characters, and it was impossible to say no to this idea. She asked Eddie Perfect to write some songs for it. So Eddie Perfect has written some songs. We are presenting it as a way of purging the demons of the last couple of years of, of weirdness and difficulty, and embarking on a fresh start in 2022. But really, we wanted to finish this year with a gift to audiences, and I think the Boomcac panto is that. So that's our part 2. Now, part 1 is still going. So if you have a subscription to part 1 and you want to be part of part 2, you can just add some of part 2 onto your subscription. If you don't have a subscription, then you can just cherry pick a little bit from both parts and pull together a subscription package from both parts of the season. It's an unusual way of doing things, but that's life at the moment. The great COVID adventure continues. We look forward to seeing you back at Belvoir soon.